Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our latest webinar being co-hosted by DOE's Loan Programs Office and the National Association of State Energy Officials, titled Getting to Scale with DOE's Loan Programs Office, an Introduction for State Energy Offices. We're really excited to have you here this morning. There's a lot of exciting opportunities that have been going on at LPO, and we're excited to share those with you and provide information on how state energy offices and state energy financing institutions can partner with LPO in thinking through financing energy products and energy infrastructure throughout the nation. Before we get started and before we got talking about the agenda a little bit, I would like to turn things over to NASEO's Executive Director, or NASEO's President, David Terry, to provide some introductory and welcoming remarks from NASEO. David?
Thanks, Sam, and thanks everybody for making time. I know how busy the state energy offices and our colleagues at the Department of Energy are these days, but this is an important topic. NASEO and other organizations work very hard to expand the opportunities and activities under the Loan Program Office over a number of years, including the opportunities that will present themselves through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as ongoing state-funded and state activities and public-private financing. And I think just really want to express our thanks to Director Shaw and the team at the Loan Program Office for their support and help. A number of the people speaking today are folks that have collaborated with states over time, and I think this is a great way to raise awareness. And also a thanks to Director McCoy for making today's call as well from the SCEP office. Also helpful, this connection, I think, that's being made. I'm going to keep it short so we can move forward and hear a little bit about the new opportunities there are for states as a result of changes and opportunities that are being created at the Loan Program Office, and turn it back to Sam to do our bios and facilitate the morning's webinar. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate those opening remarks here. First, look at our agenda. So obviously, we just had the welcome from NASEO. We'll do some quick housekeeping, and I'll introduce our speakers, and then we'll have some remarks from SCEP and a partnership invitation to states from the director of SCEP, Henry McCoy. And then we'll have a recorded message from Jigar Shah, who is the director of DOE's Loan Programs Office. And then we'll do a quick round of polling. We want to understand, who you are and where you're coming from. So that'll pop up on the screen, and then we'll get into the meat of our discussion with an overview of LPO's offerings and thoughts there from both Gretchen Kittle as well as Elizabeth Wolf, who are at LPO. And then we'll get into a state panel thinking about the state perspective from this with both John Joshi from NYSERDA and Bert Hunter from the Connecticut Green Bank. We'll do a second round of polling to get some information from you on how LPO can best help you get to the next stage in terms of your energy financing products. And then finally, with the remainder of the time, we'll have some discussion and Q&A, and then finally adjourn. Quick housekeeping remarks here. As this is a Zoom webinar, please put any questions you have for the speakers in either the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will read those out to the speakers at the end of all presentations, at the end of the webinar. Please let us know if you have any issues, and we can help you work those out as well. And with that, let us go on to our speakers. I'm going to provide some quick speaker introductions here. So first, I'll introduce Dr. McCoy, and then we'll go down the line here. So Dr. Henry McCoy is the director of the Office of State and Community Energy Programs at the U.S. Department of Energy. He's a seasoned professional in business, community and economic development, policy, government, finance, energy, philanthropy, and the academic worlds. Prior to the Department of Energy, he served on the faculty at North Carolina Central University School of Business, where he led the entrepreneurship program with additional appointments at Duke, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and Harvard. Gretchen Kittle is the acting director of outreach and business development for the Department of Energy's Loan Programs Office. She leads LPO's business development activities to engage with potential applicants and help borrowers move through pre-application consultations and the application process. And her team is also managing more than 150 active applications for nearly $128 billion in loans across a variety of clean energy and advanced transportation sectors. Elizabeth Bellis-Wolf, who is a senior consultant with DOE's Loan Programs Office, coordinates virtual power plant and state energy financing institution transaction efforts for the outreach and business development team at the Loan Programs Office of the U.S. Department of Energy. John Joshi, the Director for Financing Solutions at the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, or or NYSERDA, focuses on developing strategies as part of NYSERDA's Clean Energy Fund for mobilizing private capital and market-based financing solutions to support scaled investments in clean energy across sectors and technology areas. In this role, John's focuses on technologies where financing solutions have been underutilized or underdeveloped. He has extensive experience in solar and renewable energy capital market solutions, structured products, hedge funds, and risk management. And Bert Hunter, an executive vice president and the chief investment officer at the Connecticut Green Bank, leads the development of the Connecticut Green Bank's new and innovative financing programs. When Bert joined the Green Bank in 2012, he brought a 30-plus year career in commercial and investment banking, where he was focused on structured credits in energy and commercial aircraft finance. So with that, I would like to turn things over to Dr. Henry McCoy, who is the director of SCEP, to provide some opening remarks as well as a partnership invitation to states. Dr. McCoy, you may take it away.
Good morning, everybody. So wonderful to be here. Thank you, Sam and David, for that wonderful introduction. I love the notion of a partnership invitation because that's what this is. This is really the idea of how do we continue to lock arms and move forward in this incredible work. I won't take long. As mentioned, I'm Henry McCoy. I have the honor of serving as the director of the Office of State Community Energy Programs. For those who don't know this office, well, we're called SCEP. We're one of the newer offices within DOE. We focus on this notion of accelerating deployment of clean energy, reliable energy technologies, create high-paying jobs, helping ensure that households and businesses see lower energy bills and other benefits. We certainly have a strong focus on this intersection between economic development and equity. And so NASEO has proven to be a wonderful partner in that work. And we know that this will continue down that path. I've attended each of the NASEO regional meetings so far. And as my grandmother used to say, if the Lord's willing, the creek don't rise, I will be at the meeting next week in Bismarck, North Dakota, and looking forward to continue this partnership. SCEP really values our relationship with NASEO and with the state energy officials and the staff and the partners, everybody that comes to the table to do this wonderful work. And we're really committed to really helping the states to take advantage of the DOE resources, these historic DOE resources that help accelerate the deployment of these clean energy technologies. We have $100 billion across DOE, which has been put in place to really help accelerate this work. SCEP has $16 billion of that. The Loan Programs Office is one of those incredible offices that we really hope that you take advantage of. And so that's what this webinar is about, connecting states with opportunities that DOE's Loan Programs Office really leads. My colleague Jigger Shaw is doing a wonderful job with his team of getting the word out. And so, LPO was created as part of or has a new authority under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act, really designed just for the idea of working with states to access to clean energy finance in a large way. And so you will see from time to time these significant investments that the Loan Programs Office is making in states and in other projects. So we hope that you can become a part of that. So I'm excited today to really bring forth and to introduce my LPO colleagues here so they can share programs and expertise with the states. And I invite the states to consider how DOE's combined resources can help you accelerate your clean energy deployment. This is a partnership invitation. We open up this work to really work hand in hand to figure out how do we move this forward. So finally, I just want to thank NASEO for hosting this event. This is a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I hope that you get much out of this. I look forward to working with each and every one of you all, seeing how you go forth and help transform your state, which will help transform the country and the energy landscape to be the most efficient, clean, and accessible to all. And we can do that if we work together. So thank you again. And I turn it back over to Sam for a message from Jigger, I believe.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. McCoy. Those are some great words there, and I'm looking forward to see what partnerships come out of the cooperation between the energy offices and financing institutions in DOE. So let's move on to the next portion of our agenda. We do have a recorded message from the director of LPO, Jigger Shaw. If we can get that pulled up here.
Yeah, Sam, could you just unshare your screen? It's not allowing me to share. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jigger Shaw, and I'm the director.
AP, we're not seeing the video.
On behalf of LPO, I appreciate you joining our webinar today.
Let me try that one more time.
One more time. There we go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jigar Shah, and I'm the director here at the Loan Programs Office at the Department of Energy. On behalf of LPO, I appreciate you joining our webinar today to learn more about how LPO can support your state in deploying clean energy projects at scale. Historically, the Loan Programs Office finances large, innovative energy and advanced vehicle projects where the private sector is unwilling or unable. Today, our roles working together across federal and state government in the energy transition has grown to be much more urgent and much more important. With the passage of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act in the past 2 years, LPO now has tens of billions of additional loan authority that we can use to support a wealth of proven technologies that can be deployed where state policymakers and the private sector are working together. States have been stepping up and leading the way in the energy transition, and we are here today to start explaining how it is that we can help your state go farther and faster in your efforts with additional financing. There's no doubt there are various entities in your states that provide grants and loans for energy-related projects. Not only infrastructure banks, but green banks, housing or economic development authorities, electric utilities, the list goes on and on. At LPO, we think of these groups as state energy financing institutions, or what we call SEFIs. SEFIs are the key to unlocking billions of investment needed to fund energy and energy efficiency projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions while using existing or proven technologies. For projects where SEFIs provide meaningful support, Congress has given LPO the ability to waive the innovation requirement of its Title 17 program, meaning LPO funds can now finance projects employing proven technologies that lead to decarbonization. These newly available resources are game-changing for large-scale renewable energy and infrastructure projects that further your state's climate policy priorities. The breadth of possibilities is wide. Maybe there's a developer who wants to make energy-related improvements across a large portfolio of multifamily properties, or a school district replacing their diesel buses with electric. Maybe it's an industrial park that could use help decarbonizing, or an automated demand response program your city utility has been wanting to establish using virtual power plant approaches. All this and more can be supported by LPO through SEFIs. Now, I'm sure you're already asking yourself many questions, like, what is meaningful SEFI support? Or does my organization qualify as a SEFI? Those are exactly the type of questions we'll get into during today's webinar. For now, I encourage you to think big. Whatever you come up with, my team is here to help you make that happen. We are here to support your deliberations during every step that follows. Thanks for your interest, and I hope to hear from you soon about how we at the Loan Programs Office can help make your state's climate, equity, and prosperity ambitions a reality.
All right, thank you so much, JP. Really appreciate that. Those are some great words from Jigar to help get us kicked off here. So now what we're going to do is we want to hear a little bit from you in terms of who you are and who you represent. So what I'm going to do is I am now launching a poll that should be on your screens now. Please take a minute or two to answer the 2 questions that are here as part of the poll, and then we'll be able to end the poll and share the results in just a couple minutes. So thank you. right. We have about 30 seconds left, so if you have not responded to the poll, please do so now. All right, I think we'll end the poll now. Thank you so much, and let's share the results here. So looking at the results, it looks like we've got great state energy office presence here. About 46% of you mentioned that you were part of a state energy office. We also have good representation from not only green banks and clean energy centers, but housing finance authorities, economic development authorities, and the private sector. And then finally, your familiarity with the Loan Programs Office. It looks like we have a range of knowledge and skills here. We've got some folks that are really familiar with LPO's offerings. We've got some folks that have some understanding of LPO's offerings, but maybe want to learn a little more. And then we've got some folks that are totally beginners, and that's totally fine because we're going to learn a lot today about what LPO is able to offer and do under its new authority. So let's turn on to our next section here, where we are going to have an overview of LPO from Gretchen Kittle, who is one of the directors at LPO. Gretchen, are you there?
I am here, and I'm excited to be talking to this audience. This is fantastic. Well, and as I was introduced before, acting director of the Outreach and Business Development Division here at the Loan Programs Office at the Department of Energy. And I'll take a few minutes up front to go over the context of LPO overall, and then I'll hand it over to Elizabeth Wolf, who will be speaking in more detail, something that's close to your interests. Now, we'll be going through, what I'll be doing is going through slides pretty quickly, but relax, don't try to read all the words, because this is meant to be partly a reference document for you, and you will get the slide deck, you can get that afterwards. So don't worry about trying to read the words if we're going through them quickly, okay? Let me also give you, especially I'm seeing that there's somewhat familiar and total beginner in the audience, so let me give you a little bit of a glossary here, because as you all know, we can talk in acronyms. So I'll just let you know a few things up front. If we talk about LPO, that's the Loan Programs Office, and we are here to help you. We talk about Title 17, that's a short name for the loan guarantee programs that LPO administers under the authority that was created in Title 17 of the Energy Policy Act of 2005 as amended. And the Title 17 sections that we'll be concentrating on today, a little bit later on, are the 1703 and 1706 sections. Now, I mentioned that the program has been revised. Since 2005, Title 17 has been revised by subsequent legislation. And two of the acts that you'll hear about today, potentially, are the IIJA, which refers to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That was from 2021. And the IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022. When we talk about the United States or states, we're including the 50 states, plus the District of Columbia, Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and any territory or possession in the United States of America. So we want to be all inclusive, just make sure that you're aware of that. We'll also be talking today about guidance that's been issued, again, about the Title 17 program that we'll be concentrating on today. And in addition to the guidance, we have issued an interim final rule, and we encourage you to make comments on that. We'll be accepting comments through July 31st, and then we can most definitely let you know how to do that if you are interested. All right, let's flip over to slide 3. Folks, I'm having not quite sure, oops, we were in slide 3, but that's all right. What do we do at LPO? What we do is work with the private sector to enable their ideas by financing their ideas with debt. And with you, what we want to do is see where our interests are aligned and work together with you to make sure that we are taking advantage of the innovation, the drive for going to a clean energy economy that's fueling ideas across the U.S. We have, I say that's what we do, and we have the proof of that we've done this in the past. This is just some of our success across the sectors. I'd also like you you can look at energy.gov/LPO today, and you'll see an announcement of a major project where we're helping to finance a battery manufacturing plant. So we're real excited about the things that we are active doing today, not just what we've done historically. All right, let's go to the next slide. This is where we talk about, we go to slide 5. Okay, you'll hear us talk about ourselves as a bridge to bankability. You can consider us a bank within the Department of Energy. But what we do is that we take projects that are ready to be financed on a commercial scale, but there's not an appetite with banks or other commercial lenders to provide that money for various reasons. But that's where we can step in, and we can make sure that those ideas do get their backing that they have to where they can be proved to full market accessibility and acceptability. All right, let's go to the next slide. We have our impact has been felt across the US. There are some, you can see that partly it's concentrated here, but we are seeing in our application portfolio applications that are coming from an even broader array of technologies and opportunities that are spread across more states than we have done in the past. Go to the next slide, where we have the projects that we do have had a huge impact. And we, again, want to bank on that ability that we have to influence where the market is going and what the market is supporting, in that it's benefiting people across all sectors of the economy and all geographic sectors in the US. Okay, let's go to the next slide, where we have our Crayola box. This is just a picture of the different types of energy and technology areas that we are financing. So it's something where you as states are different. You have different geographies, different populations, different interests, different capabilities. And that's where we don't have at LPO, we are not a one size fits all. We are something where we cover such a broad spectrum that what we can do is see the size that fits you and the opportunity that you would be bringing to us for the opportunities that we are able to back with our capabilities of analyzing technology risk, analyzing commercial and financial viability, and making sure that we can back ideas that are ready to be launched on a commercial scale. Okay, let's go to the next slide. We have a lot of applications that are in-house that we are working on right now, 150, and we're looking at evaluating about 130 billion of opportunities that people have brought to us. These are spread across sectors, as you can see in the block diagram to the right. So it's never too early to call us to explore if an idea is something that we could help you to craft an application and turn in so that it could be evaluated in our application process. Let's go to the next one. Okay, and then with these applications, they're not clustered in specific areas in the US. They're all across, and we are making sure that we are coordinating with as many advisors, as many state offices, as many local offices as we can, to make sure that everybody knows about the opportunity and the resources that we provide. And we encourage you to, wherever you are, realize that we might be in your neighborhood already, and we're just really look forward to exploring opportunities that you may have. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is something where, do we have the funding? Yes, we do. So it's something where, as you know, applications that come in, they might someone might decide not to continue because perhaps some commercial lenders have decided that they do want to back that project, or they might be looking to mature their technology a little bit more before they pursue it. Or it could be that they are just, as you know, that you're bound by statutes and regulations. There might be a project that we believe in, that we think is fantastic, but just doesn't fit the guidelines that we operate under. So it's something where we welcome opportunities and applications to make sure that we're able to put through applications that will be successful and that we can apply our funding to support. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And now we can slow down a little bit. With to give you an overview, again, we'll be concentrating on the program that's in the upper left corner today, the Title 17, but want to make sure that you are aware of the different programs that we have. Now to the upper right-hand corner, the Tribal Energy Program. We are ready to support energy projects that will assist one or many of the 574 federally recognized tribes that are located across the US. So we heavily encourage you to, if there's an opportunity to have an energy project that is of the benefit of a tribe in your region, please contact us and we can explore that opportunity and see how we could support that project. We have about $20 billion of funding available to support projects in the Tribal Energy Loan Guarantee Program. For advanced transportation, that's something where we are very strong in supporting the development of advanced technology vehicles and the supply chain that builds them or that supports them. So this is another program where we have available funding, we have expertise, and we have the willingness to go and explore how we can support those industries in your state. For SEFIA, that's in the bottom right, there's something where with carbon, we all want to capture it, remove it from the atmosphere, etc. But then what do we do with it? Sometimes there are going to be uses for carbon or the ability to sequester it nearby where it's captured. Sometimes not. So we want to make sure that there is infrastructure that can transport that CO2 to where it can be used or sequestered. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Now our Title 17 Clean Energy Financing Program. This is something where we have what we offer is for projects that qualify in this area. We offer patient capital, we offer flexible financing, and we offer partnership for the life of a loan. We are a bank, as I said before, within DOE, but we're not here for profit. We're here to complete our mission. And we can't complete our mission unless you complete yours. And especially with a lot of projects, we see that they depend on having the support of states and local entities. And that's something where we just want to make sure that we can use our considerable in-house expertise to support these large-scale projects and to analyze the technical and technological risks. We want to bring that so that we can benefit a project that you might have, where you might not have the expertise that DOE does, to make sure that that you can see where that could be a financeable project with DOE's expertise there to help you analyze what are the true risks in this, excuse me, in this project. Okay, so within so we have in the Title 17 Clean Energy Financing Program, with the recent legislation, we have added two new things that might be of particular interest to you. And we'll get to those in just a minute. Let's go to the next slide. Now, for the Title 17 program, if you look in the upper left, we have 4 project categories. The top 2 are ones that you've already seen in the past. That's innovative energy and the innovative supply chain. The 2 new ones are the State Energy Financing Institution, or SEFI supported projects, and the Energy Infrastructure Reinvestment projects. Now these are projects that are, excuse me, that we really encourage you to look at. We will be concentrating mostly on number 3 today because that's more directly applicable to you, but we encourage you to explore with us the other categories because these are ones that we are excited to explore how we can work with you to support them. Now, when you're looking at the Title 17, generally we have the criteria that the eligibility criteria that's common to all of them. And we'll go over those in just a minute. But we also have, you might have heard in the names of the programs that we always throw around the word innovative. So the first 2 categories, the ones that have been in existence under the Section 17 of the Title 17 programs, are the innovative energy and the innovative supply chain projects. For those categories, you do need to have an innovation factor in them. However, for the next 2, for the state energy, the SEFI projects, and the 1706 or EIR projects, you don't have the innovation requirement. So we just want to make sure that we do bring that out to you. Okay, so let's go over, let's go to the next slide, where we talk about the Title 17 program guidance. So I've given you just a slight preview to this. We have the guidance where we have taken solicitations that some of you who are familiar with LPO have seen in the past. There were 3 separate solicitations out on the market, but now we have compiled them and condensed them into the program guidance. If you had if you were an applicant, or if somebody who you're working with an applicant, with this new guidance, it is not necessary for you to submit a new application. Okay, this is something where, and if there's an application that's currently under review, you don't have to reapply. We are not going to revisit determinations that have been made with your application. But we might be asking you for additional information if it's a possibility that you could qualify under the new categories that I had mentioned earlier with the SEFI or the 1706 new product categories. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, a little bit, I apologize, my slides here are a little bit out of order. Okay, so here are the clean energy categories that we had talked about earlier. Now, the first two, as I said, are type of projects that you're familiar with, and they have the innovation requirement. Now, and I'll go over them just briefly again. The energy innovative category project, that's projects that deploy a new or significantly improved technology that's been proven, but is not widely commercialized in the United States. Then we go to the innovative supply category, and that can be projects that either employ a new or significantly improved technology in the manufacturing process, or they manufacture a component that represents a new or significantly improved technology. Now, for the categories, the third and fourth categories, let's go with SEFI. Elizabeth will go over this with you in further detail, but just briefly, this category was authorized under the IIJA, and it supports the deployment of qualifying clean energy technology in projects that have received meaningful financial support or credit enhancements from a SEFI. And the fourth category, or the second in the new ones, is the 1706, where what we're looking to do there is to support you retooling, repowering, repurposing, or replacing energy infrastructure that has either ceased operations, or we want you to be able to enable operating energy infrastructure that will avoid, reduce, utilize, or sequester air pollutants or emissions of greenhouse gases, as we refer to as GHG reduction. And there, when we talk about the energy infrastructure, we mean that facilities that are used for electric generation or transmission, or facilities that are used for fossil fuel related production, processing, and delivery. All right. So if we let's go to the next slide. There we go. So now the Title Program 17 program eligibility. This is the things that are common to all Title 17 program eligibility is that any potential borrower that has a qualified and eligible project that meets the administration's national security and economic competitiveness objectives can receive a loan guarantee subject to the underwriting and evaluation criteria that we describe here. The project has to be located in the US. It has to be energy related. It has to achieve the GHG emission reduction. It has to have technically viable and commercially ready technology. And now, newly, it must include a community benefits plan. And of course, it must not benefit from certain prohibited federal support subsidies. Okay, so now let's go to numbers 6 and 7. There are the new requirements under Title 17. The community benefits plan, you'll need to submit if there's an application, they'll need to submit that. And this can answer to state objectives with improving your economics, your environmental considerations, and things like that. So here's where an applicant will identify community benefits that are resulting from this project, and that can span the economic or social, environment, and equity considerations. In addition, an applicant is going to need to identify any potential harms and how they will be mitigated. Okay, and this is something where borrowers or applicants would be expected to report on this on an ongoing basis. So again, this is something where we bring that to your attention because it could be answering needs that you have. We also have, and as you know, we are working with you to where you might be, you as a state in the audience, you might be supporting a project that we would support as well. we have some restrictions on projects on other federal support that projects might be receiving. So of course we will go through with that, but that's something where but that particular restriction does not necessarily apply to the state funding that we were talking about with SEFI projects. And again, Elizabeth will clarify that as we move forward in this discussion. Okay. So let's go on to the next slide. Now, within Title 1703, that was again the first two types of categories of projects that we discussed. They require at least one eligible technology among the spectrum of technologies that we have here. We have them more fully described on the web, and we're very happy to provide that information on how we define these projects. These are, now this applies to the innovative energy projects and the innovative supply chain projects that you're familiar with. Also, it's not just those first two, but with the SEFI projects, it applies to them as well, because the SEFI projects are under 1703, that section of the Title 17. All right, so we just want to make sure that you're aware that we have this requirement. If there is, under the fourth category, the EIR or 1706 projects, where we're looking for you to retool and repurpose, they can have these technologies. That's not prohibited, but they are not required to have one of these 13. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. And this is with the community benefits plans. This again is something where we have the we want you to be aware that we're making sure that we are backing projects that are going to be beneficial to you and to the communities within your state, and that these must be specified in the applications. All right, so let's go to the next slide. And here's where we'll touch back on the energy infrastructure reinvestment projects under the new section 1706 under Title 17. Let's go to the next slide. Where in this, the eligibility that we have here is that if you're going to have finance infrastructure, if you're going to, sorry, we're looking in the left-hand column, it's basic project eligibility, that they retool, repower, repurchase, etc. And I want to make sure that you understand that if there is, that we say that if there is financed infrastructure, we want to make sure that it is that the new infrastructure is at or near the site of the legacy infrastructure, because we want to make sure that if there is facilities in your state that are ceasing operations or have ceased operations, we want to make sure that if there is someone is coming in and getting financed to build new projects, we want to see if there is benefit that can benefit a community that might have been disadvantaged by the fact that these operations had shut down. So we want to see that it's something where we are aligning our interests with supporting communities in your state that might have been disadvantaged. Okay. Now let's go to, we have a lot more detail on here, but what I want to make sure is that we give the time to Elizabeth to cover the SEFI documents. So let's go to the next slide. Again, we have examples of the EIR projects. And again, you'll have this slide deck where you can look at the examples. And if there's anything that seems to appeal to you, please do contact us, and we'll be very happy to go through it with you. Now let's go to the next slide. Now with the lending overview, we'll go through this again pretty quickly. We're very happy to walk through the detail with you. We don't have a minimum or maximum loan size. Generally, we're at about 100 million and above for the loan size. We can lend up to 80% of the total project costs statutorily. Rarely do we go to that extent because we are a bank, essentially a cash flow bank. So we're looking at things just as a bank would. So we're looking at what the project can support. We have, if we are issuing a loan guarantee, if the FFB, if the Treasury essentially is issuing the loan, we can guarantee up to 100% of that. Or if there's a commercial lender who's lending to the project, we can support up to 90% of that. We have, if there's an application that goes to, or if the Treasury will be financing a loan, you still just come through us. You don't need to apply separately to the Treasury for that loan. Let's skip to the next slide when we talk about interest rates and fees. Now, interest rates, back in the prior slide, it referred to interest rates start at the Treasury rate with the duration of your loan, plus a small amount, 3/8% for the cost of money, essentially, and then a credit risk related spread is added on top of that to compensate the bank, us for the risk, just like a commercial bank would do. But let me come to the fees. This is something that we have had to change, so I really want to make sure that you do understand. For application fees, they have been eliminated for the Title 17 program, so there is not an application fee. We still do require facility fees because that covers the administrative costs, et cetera, that we have to underwrite and maintain our oversight of the loan. The same thing with the maintenance fees. We have, and now the second line relates to advisor fees. Just like a bank, we go through extensive due diligence with these loans. When we do that, then outside advisors come in to make sure that we are carrying through the necessary due diligence. That is something where the borrower, or the applicant, will be paying those advisory fees as incurred. They can be amortized within the loan, but those fees will be paid by the applicant as incurred. Okay, so this is something where there have been some changes over the years with that, but this is something where we want to just make sure that you're aware of the structure of the fees now. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Loan transaction process. We are interactive with you, and it goes through many iterations. The division that I'm leading our goal is to help you craft the strongest application that you can and work with you through the application process. And that is something where it goes through multiple stages. The time frame would be from can plan for an average of about 12 months to get through the full process with all of the due diligence, et cetera, that is required. And we are very, very ready to set up pre-application consultations with you, or consultations with you if you would be an advisor to an applicant or a co-investor. So call us, email us, and we're there to help you. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, which is questions that we have had frequently recently. Again, we're back to the fees, or I'm sorry, to the application process. You can plan on 12 months, but a lot of that depends on responsiveness of the applicant back and forth. It can be shorter, it can be longer, but that's something where we work with you to make it as efficient as possible. But a lot of it relates to your responsiveness or the applicant's responsiveness to the information that we need during the due diligence and general application process. The fee structure, we just went over that, where there's no application fee. We do have the facility fee and maintenance fees. Those are in place. And we also do have the applicant will be paying during the due diligence stage, which is towards the end of the loan transaction process, will be paying for those advisor fees as incurred. For tax credits, we welcome tax credits, and that's something where we most definitely work with. We can stack those into the application, or having support for the application. So investment tax credits are welcome. Other federal support, we can work with you to see exactly what it is that could be coinciding with the loan program guarantee loan. Mostly assume that they're not, because generally grants, federal grants, cannot be held at the same time as a loan program loan is outstanding with an applicant. Okay, but then again, the devil is in the details there, and we'll go through that with you. All right. Now, excuse me, let me hand over, let's go to the next slide. All right. So folks, this is something where we went through this at a faster pace than it normally would, so we can give some time to Elizabeth Wolf. So Elizabeth will be able to give you detail with the SEFI program, or State Energy Financial Institution Supported Projects, and how that might go through the details with that. because that's something that we really encourage you to come to us, or you to support projects, so that we can align our interests and support the projects that are going to be meaningful to your state or your region. Elizabeth, let me hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Gretchen. I know we're running a little behind here, but luckily I think between Gretchen and Jigger, we've covered a lot of the high level, and I'll try to cover points to add to what they've said. The first question that you all may be having, given the large proportion of state energy officials on this call, is, am I a SEFI? What is a SEFI? Unfortunately, the statute didn't provide a specific list of pre-designated state energy financing institutions. Instead, there's a definition that looks to two components. First, the type of organization. Are you a state agency? Well, most state energy offices will fit that bill. Are you a quasi-independent entity or an entity within a state agency? Like, for example, the New York Green Bank, being a division of NYSERDA, might be seeing themselves in this definition. And then the second piece is, what purposes were you established to fulfill? This part's a little less straightforward. We are looking for two purposes. First, that the agency or proposed state energy financing institution provides financing support or credit enhancements, including loan guarantees and loan loss reserves for the types of projects, or at least some of the types of projects that are eligible for LPO financing under Title 17. In addition, we look to demonstrate that your organization was established to either create liquid markets for eligible projects, including warehousing, or, and I think this one's a broader one that probably applies to a wider swath, taking other steps to reduce financial barriers to the deployment of existing and new eligible projects. So when we look to determine this with respect to a particular application or organization, we'll look to things like the statute that created the organization, or the executive order, or perhaps the bylaws of the organization. We'll look to understand what programs it has been explicitly authorized to implement, and whether the source of those funds are the organization's own balance sheet or funds, as opposed to a conduit for some other non-state entity. We are still working out our implementation of this decision-making process, but I'm pleased to tell you that we do have the first couple of organizations under review now, and we hope to have some exciting announcements for you shortly, and look forward to hearing from all of you with your background information to facilitate our consideration of your organizations for this designation. Let's see. The second question that people ask is, you say that for a project to be a SEFI project, it has to receive meaningful support from a SEFI. What does that mean? Again, the statute did not give us a concrete definition. It did not provide any specific minimums, maximums, so forth. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, I guess I'll come back to that. Before I go into the details of meaningful support, as we noted, we're really excited that this allows us to align what we're doing with your goals. In the past, as you may know, it can be challenging to work with LPO as a state energy office. And we hope that this will change that and really open up relationships and partnerships, as Dr. McCoy said, with all of you. We think that we're a great opportunity for you as well to leverage your limited state dollars to accelerate and multiply your impact with less impact on your state taxpayers and ratepayers. We also note that this program doesn't have to be for projects that are only within your state. You can support projects that are multi-state or partner with other states to support bigger projects to help you meet the minimum typical size requirements that we see. And finally, of course, we're excited that this program allows us to finance high policy priority projects that previously might not have been eligible. A great example would be electrification, basic electrification projects, right? A lot of that technology is fully commercialized and has been, and we're not necessarily looking to the most cutting edge hardware for all of our disadvantaged community programs. This new program lets us partner with you even on those types of programs and help you reach your policy priorities and goals there. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Just for your awareness, guidance document does provide some examples of projects that could qualify, just to kind of get your mental juices flowing on things that you might be working on that you wouldn't necessarily associate with LPO, but where there might be a conversation that should be had. With a number of states, we've gone through a process of what we call a portfolio review, essentially, where we get on the phone and go through the things that you're supporting, what your goals are, where you're spending money, and identify whether any of them might be good follow-ups for us to talk about how we can work together. Let's go to the next slide. So coming back to the meaningful support question, we did in the guidance identify at least some of the factors that may be relevant to making this determination. And the obvious ones, I think, are how much money, how much support is being provided, right? Both in an absolute sense, but also relative to the total project costs. A very large project may need more support in order to be demonstrating meaningful support. We also look at the position of the SEFI support in the capital stack. Many of you all have a very wide variety of tools in your states and your offices to support these types of projects, everything from senior debt, that's very similar to the sort of thing that LPO provides, to mezzanine, to preferred equity, to straight equity, to loan loss reserves, and even grant programs that are project designated. Each of those represents a different amount of commitment from you all and a different amount of risk. And so we do take that into account in determining how much funding or support is needed to demonstrate meaningful support. One important note here, there is language in our guidance that specifically calls out state renewable portfolio standards as not in of themselves representing meaningful support. And the reason for this is if an RPS involves essentially a mandate that the utilities purchase credits for a specified category, typically those funds aren't coming from the state or a state agency. They may flow through the state agency, but if there's no sort of state budget at risk, then it's hard for us to demonstrate that the program meets the intent and requirements of the statute. So let's go on to the next slide. Just a few other considerations. You all may have had these issues in other contexts, so I have to raise the boogeyman of Buy America, Build America. This is a provision that says essentially that if your project is receiving certain types of federal support, all the iron, steel, manufactured products, and construction materials used in the project need to be produced in the US, unless the Secretary waives it, which could happen if those domestic materials simply aren't available. We know that not everything is produced here. We're working hard to change that, as with our $9 billion announcement today to build more of these types of things in the US. But still, we understand it's not always possible. And then second, in some cases, the cost premium is really significant, greater than 25%. And that's another reason why a secretarial waiver could be considered. But generally speaking, as a nonprofit or state recipient, there is likelihood that we would need to seek legal guidance on getting such a waiver or on the application of Buy America. Whereas typically with our private sector applicants that you might be partnering with, we generally believe that they will not be subject to these requirements. We don't have a formal official statement on that yet, but the reason I mention it is because if you're working with these private sector applicants and Build America, Buy America is a potential concern, it might be an easier structure for you all to have the partner apply and provide your support to them rather than having the state supply and be the direct recipient of the funds. You heard about the federal support restriction. Don't worry, you can get federal funds from other sources. You just can't use them directly or indirectly for the project that's being supported. We have had a lot of conversations about the rebate programs that you'll be administering. So for example, if we're supporting electrification and a household receives one of the state administered rebates, again, we're waiting for official determinations and final word on this, but it seems like there may be an ability to exclude the portion that was covered by the rebate from the scope of the project in order to help facilitate eligibility. So if you're interested in those questions and want to kind of dig in with our team, I really encourage you to reach out because obviously, as Gretchen said, the devil is very much in the details. Finally, indirect SEFI support. I know that many of you work with third-party administrators and partners that you provide funds to who help you run these programs that you're supporting. If they're doing it with your funds and subject to your direction, the fact that you're not doing it directly yourself isn't necessarily going to prevent that project from applying to LPO for support. We're trying to be flexible and acknowledge the variety of arrangements that you all use. So I'm going to stop there on SEFI, and I'm sure we'll get more questions later. I want to quickly turn to the next slide and just mention to you all virtual power plants. I can't go on a webinar with Jigger at the beginning without mentioning these. There is a lot of overlap between virtual power plants and the SEFI and 1706 programs. But essentially, we wanted to make sure you're aware this is one of our policy priorities. We have a very broad definition of virtual power plants. So most of your distributed energy programs may well fit into our categories of virtual power plants. We're really looking to make the whole greater than the sum of its parts of all these distributed resources that are getting deployed through your programs and ours, and help aggregate them into grid scale resources at a more cost-effective way to address some of our challenges than simply building only utility scale approaches. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, I guess I should have mentioned, and I'll see it on the slide too. Virtual power plants can include a wide variety of hardware. So everything from HVAC to electric vehicles and their chargers. It's a pretty broad category. But the idea here is economies of scale, putting all these pieces together, achieve something that we can't when they're left alone on their own devices, which unfortunately is the case today for many of these resources. We have a great untapped resource that we're trying to help facilitate reaching. Let's go to the next slide. Just to show you one example of a virtual power plant kind of component would be a grid interactive efficient buildings, which some of you may be familiar with from your work with Better Buildings. And I think it's a good illustration of the many components that could be being financed or supported by a state that could also be part of a virtual power plant, from rooftop solar to connected lighting, occupancy sensing, batteries, and we even are interested in the thermal mass of the building. Efficiency and insulation improves the capacity of a building to shift load because it can stay warm for longer or cool for longer, and therefore have a greater difference between the peak time and when it needs to be preheated or pre-cooled to have comfort. So let's go to the next slide. This is just if you're wondering, why do we keep talking to you about VPPs all the time? We really think these are a great tool to solve a lot of the problems we're seeing in the grid and that many of you are experiencing in terms of challenges decarbonizing quickly, limitations on transmission and distribution infrastructure, peak load issues, affordability, and reliability. And we're going to be coming out shortly with a liftoff report on this that will give a lot more detail that we hope you'll use as a resource as you think about the ways that your programs can sort of be consistent with best practices around grid interactivity. All right, next slide. And this is just a slide to highlight for you all how large this opportunity is. You may be aware of it, but this is billions of dollars, and we're nowhere near the potential for the US. We only have maybe 3% of households with residential solar right now. Australia has 30%. So I think we still have a long way to go to reach the full potential here. All right, let's go to the next slide. So I know we're over, so I'm gonna cut it short there to make sure John and Burton and others get time and you all have time for questions. But I'm available for one-on-one consultations. I hope this can be the beginning of a conversation, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you so much, Gretchen, and thank you so much, Elizabeth, for that really informative presentation there. It definitely gave us a lot of good information on what LPO has and is able to contribute in terms of helping to finance these projects. Before we go on to our next section, just a quick reminder that we are recording this webinar and we will be posting it afterwards alongside the slides. So don't worry, we will send you those. But now let's turn over to this state portion and the state panel discussion that I'll be facilitating as moderator here. We're excited to bring in two folks representing the states, John Joshi representing NYSERDA and Bert Hunter with the Connecticut Green Bank. They're here to help us talk through, the state perspective on LPO's financing offerings and how to think through from your perspective and your end, what we need to really be thinking, what are the key things we need to be considering as state energy offices and state energy financing institutions when partnering with LPO on energy financing and projects. So I think to start, or this is an open question for both of you, is I think we need to know a little bit more about your organizations and what they do. So if you could just both, kind of describe your organizations and the role they both play in expanding access to financing for clean energy deployment, that would be really helpful.
John, you want me to kick it off?
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Yeah, the Connecticut Green Bank was established in 2011 by legislation, and we exist to make it easier for residents and businesses to access affordable capital for the durations that they need to enable retrofit investments as well as investments in clean energy. And by that, we mean everything from solar PV, ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps, anything that can help us realize the transition away from fossil fuels. We use a range of tools to accomplish that. Elizabeth mentioned a number of these, everything from senior debt, subordinated debt, loan loss reserves, guarantees, all to reduce financial barriers to deployment. So we have a big emphasis on an equitable and just transition, excuse me, and in keeping with the Biden administration's Justice 40 goals, we have a similar goal that no less than 40% of our investment and benefits from our programs are directed into low-income and vulnerable communities by 2025. To date, we've been very successful mobilizing $2.3 billion of investment in our state using about a little over $300 million of public funds. So through a variety of programs. I'll leave it there, and John, you can take it over.
Thanks, Sam. Similarly, NYSERDA, New York State Energy Development Authority, established in 1975, we're focused in the same way as Connecticut is focused, and DOE enable communities, residents, and others combating climate change. We've got a fairly large budget, 1.6 billion or so annually, yearly budget. We do this across all sectors, from the program groups offer strategies, rebates, and technical assistance across all levels of measures. We also have, in 2016, established the New York Green Bank, which was funded initially with $1 billion. They've now invested over $2 billion in New York and continue to do innovation in supporting projects in New York. We have retail lending programs through our Green Job New York program that does about $40 million annually for energy efficiency, renewable energy, and resiliency. Green Bank, as we mentioned, provides wholesale capital. And we have innovative groups like my group, Financing Solutions, smaller groups that offer other areas that we can do mitigation, including loan loss reserves for lenders, pre-development lending for the affordable multifamily sector. All of this is with mind of climate leadership and climate protection, similar to the Justice 40 requirements, and that we have just transition and combating climate change. So New York's very active. My group is leading the effort on the the SEFI side of the program, and then our Green Bank is looking at some of the ideas within the SEFI program for large-scale renewables.
Great, thank you both so much. So I think thinking through some of the questions raised by the presentation, I would love to know, you obviously, for both of your organizations, have a lot of experience in doing a lot of financing, but obviously there's still probably some barriers and challenges there in terms of really kind of getting to the next level for financing larger scale projects. What do you think the top challenges you have that you could address through SEFI support and through LPO's financing?
I think just one word mostly comes to mind: liquidity. Right? State energy offices, while they may be well funded, and some of the are just a drop in the bucket in terms of the capital that's needed in the market in this transition process. Right? So we can step in with using our concessionary capital strategically, including as a SEFI, to help catalyze private capital. That's where that transition is going to come from, where it's going to get funded. And we need annually, hundreds of billions of dollars to flow into broadly, nationally or globally. And state energy offices don't have that capital at that level, but we do have creative ideas. We can work with our federal partners. We can work with other states, and we can help lay out the platforms that can leverage that and create that liquidity in the market. Now, the SEFI program with the DOE overlay with the guarantee allows potential borrowers or aggregators of projects probably the lowest cost of capital that they can get, because the super senior part of the structure, as Gresham talked about, 90% guarantee or 80 to 90% guarantee, that's just behind treasuries as cost of capital, with the inverted yield curve, with what's happening with tightening of the monetary policy. It's hard to deploy actual retail project capital that's going to be cost effective and projects can pencil out. This is an opportunity to create that liquidity in the market, define standards in the market, and hopefully create a really high, large, scalable market. Bert?
Yeah, I agree with all that, John. And I would just on top of that just add, we're really, with the BIL and the IRA, we're at a generational moment in terms of support for this market. We kind of had 4 years of wandering in the desert, kind of waiting for the cavalry to come. And now, with the leadership of the Biden administration, and thank goodness, we had that transition. We now have the capital resources that we can marshal to really undertake a lot of these investments, as John pointed out. And I would just harken back to, it really goes back quite a ways, but the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. I mean, we used about $5 or $6 million in that program to really spur a couple of key innovations. One was with our solar lease program, which ran from about 2013 to 2016, which was an innovation in bringing solar leases to ordinary citizens, at that time, ordinary homeowners, as well as small business, which was bifurcated there. That plus our award-winning Smart E program, which is a residential energy efficiency and renewable energy loan program. Together, those produce more than $150 million worth of investment, just from $5 million of DOE, ERA funds. So if we just look at that kind of leverage and liquidity, as John points out, and you take the monies that LPO is making available potentially here, and using the tools of state energy financial institutions, with subordinated loans or guarantees, et cetera, you know, at plus all of the tax credits and rebates that are coming through the IRA, it's just really a phenomenal amount of capital that we can push into this market. But it means we have to be prepared as well. And it means that, because the demand is just not going to happen. People aren't going to wake up on say, January 1 of 2024 and say, yeah, I need to do all this stuff. There has to be awareness building. There has to be capacity improvements. There are challenges right now between permitting and interconnection and just getting a labor force, that is necessary to bring about these investments. We're not ready today, and we're certainly, with the existing funding that we have, we're certainly not going to be ready unless we do that preparation. So, but it is good to have all these facilities available, and really applaud LPO for doing things like this to make the market aware.
Yeah, just to kind of quickly supplement, I think what will also help is there's demand side and there's supply side, right? And if we can aggregate and create that demand profile, we can set standards. We can set standards that take a lot of friction out of the process. It just, back in 2012, 13, I was working for the LPO or DOE's program under National Renewable Lab on solar leasing. Bert mentioned solar leasing. That was long before solar securitization happened. And so we led the effort to define solar securitization. We standardized contracts, PPAs. Those came out of the what was called the Solar Industry Finance Association, which got merged into the main Solar Industry Association. So we think there's an opportunity, demand side, supply side mitigation with standardization. New York has a need to do 2 million homes decarbonization. That's a $40-50 billion issues. And then if you expand that broadly, that's, nationally, that's just a very large number. And if we can come up with standards, processes, that's going to create a lot of opportunity across the board. And then pure play companies can take advantage of that. And the SEFI program can help foster that.
Great. It sounds like there's a lot of potential there for the SEFI program to really step in there. What do you see as barriers to maybe leveraging LPO's new SEFI opportunity from your perspectives?
Well, I think one, Elizabeth mentioned the typical federal requirements. I mean, you don't get this money without any strings attached. So build America, buy America. I mean, all that's good. And really, if you look at the IRA legislation, it's chock full of economic development and bolstering domestic production and so forth. And we certainly applaud that. But it is a bit of a complication because you have to make sure that the developers are fully aware of those requirements. And there are waivers to be obtained, that there's a lead time for those waivers to be obtained and so forth. So I would say that those federal requirements are probably the key complication in accessing the funding, but John might have some others.
Yeah, so there's a few things. I think they've done a lot of good. Jigger and his team and Chris Creed and Elizabeth Wolf, they've done a tremendous job in aligning this. When this came up back in the IRA bill, LPO had put out a request for comments in how they can improve the program. New York State put in a proposal. We put a laundry list of about 12-15 items, including SEFI type waivers for states, because we think that we know what's going on at the local level, right? So it's been a progress over the year and a half. I think I have some issues. I fully support Buy America and all the Davis-Bacon issues, but there's also a misalignment from a federal policy perspective, where if you can have imported panels and still get tax credit on solar, right? So there's that misalignment, and one side of the federal policy is doing one, the other side is asking for another. What we should be thinking about is what's the cheapest to deliver decarbonization, as well as creating a just transition for all the communities, right? And so find that alignment between federal policies and not be as narrow and prescriptive. And if you can allow tax credits for imported panels, then you should be able to have the cheapest to deliver for decarbonization. So those are some of the issues. And I think while they've made a lot of progress on the fee structure, it also does mean that larger balance sheet entities are more suited to cover all those fees. I still have to dig into the new fee structures, but that could be something that needs to be thought out. And I think there's an opportunity for alignment with, especially with the DAC community impact, to have philanthropics and others who can help out with fee structures for that transition side of the equation. So I think that will be important. And we've been talking to LP about some of those ideas.
Thank you. So I know I have a few more questions here, but I also understand that we're starting to bump up against time, and I want to make sure we have time to answer a few discussion questions from the audience and get our second poll in. So I want to leave you with one last question here for this session. And what would you really suggest, state financing agencies and state energy offices do to begin a relationship with LPO? What's that first step?
Call Elizabeth Wolf. That's
Great
it.
answer.
She's just fantastic, and we've been working with her for more than a year and a half, and I guess we had a little bit of an insight because she used to work with our green bank. So
I would just add on top of that and John and I have discussed this already, and at least between our two organizations, in that the SEFI offers the possibility for collaboration across states, not only regionally as well as nationally. And so if there can be a way that perhaps a clearinghouse of SEFI opportunities by state energy offices, if you're seeking to collaborate or would like to collaborate, you have an opportunity and you think that this could have applicability to other states, let's try to figure out a way, in a perhaps a restricted area, because we don't want to put everything out in the public until it's ready. But where we could say, okay, there's this transaction running, and are you interested? Because we seem to be working on the same types of things. So I think that's what I would suggest, is somehow try to bring the states together, because that could also help ease the support requirements of each state that might be required to get LPO participation. So
yeah, and just to kind of supplement, we're always available in New York. We're about to, within probably 4 to 6 weeks, put a standard offer out into the market for SEFI support. We'll be happy to share all those docs, help you get up to speed. We've done the heavy lifting. It's gone through the LPO credit review board already. So I think we can help jumpstart your program.
Yeah, that's a great development, John. Really applaud NYSERDA for doing that. And we intend to follow in your footsteps.
Right. Thank you both so much. That's been a really helpful discussion. We're going to keep moving on here since we have about 9 minutes left. So we do have a second poll for you all here to get some more information about what you're looking for from LPO and what are your priorities in terms of thinking through where LPO could provide some support. So I'm now going to launch this poll, and we'll have just a few minutes, 3 or 4, and please answer the questions on your screen. There are 8 questions, so please do this as quickly as you can, and then we'll quickly look at the results and move forward. So in the interest of time, while you're working on their polls, we do have a few questions in here on the Q&A box that I'd like to read out. And I think this one will actually go out to both Gretchen and Elizabeth. I think there have been several questions here in the chat box, really thinking through as to what actually is considered by LPO to be a SEFI. So obviously green banks and infrastructure banks are probably, in that, but there could also be state or quasi-state housing financing authorities, port authorities, or economic development authorities that could support eligible projects. What exactly qualifies as a SEFI for LPO's purposes?
Gretchen, I'll let you take this one first. Unless
I was going to say, Elizabeth, you go for that, because that's something where we have. What we'll do is, and then afterwards we can also we'll provide a link. I'll see if I can do that in the chat if possible. And if not, we will just make sure that you get a link to where we do have information that's on the web on this. But go ahead, Elizabeth.
Sure. So I think the answer is we think that organizations from any of those categories might well qualify. We do have to look at those purposes for which the organization was created, but we're going to try to take as many angles towards demonstrating that the purposes are consistent with the statute as we can, right? And I think seeing evidence that an organization is doing the types of things mentioned in the statute, one would imagine that an organization can't do things that it's not, authorized to do, right? So I think we haven't had to get into too many of the hard questions yet on that, because so many of the organizations that we're considering or that have potential projects in the pipeline are frankly pretty straightforward, I think, from an analytical standpoint. But we do expect to get into that, and we welcome engagement from organizations in all of those categories. Did that answer the question, or?
I think that helps, yeah. I think another follow-up question here is that, with LPO, at least the question here, the person was previously told by LPO that your loans are typically for projects that are over 100 million. I've been considering lowering that floor to accommodate some of the types of projects you've listed as having possible SEFI support.
Well, that's something where we don't have a floor, but as far as with the 100 million, as I just briefly referred to at the start of the meeting, was that the due diligence costs that are required for project funding or project finance funding, as we do, could range to $1 to $2 million or even greater than that, depending on the circumstances and the complexity of the loan. So that's something where we are seeing that projects that generally at about 100 million, that's where the projects would be, where the cost of money would be something that is reasonable. So we do not have a minimum, but we just want to advise you that is the cost of the due diligence that you could expect.
Got it. That's very, very helpful, and thank you for the clarification. We do another question here in terms of, I believe this is going back to your slide, talking about meaningful state funding support to qualify for LPO backing. Did you have an idea of whether you have a percentage in mind for what is considered meaningful? So is like 5% state funding support meaningful enough to qualify?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we're hoping to get something more concrete out in the coming months. The sort of bottom line is there's not one percentage because there's not one type of state support, right? And there's not one type of project. And so the percentages or amounts will depend on the nature of the investment. So for example, we would anticipate a higher dollar or percentage required if you're requesting to do pari passu senior finance with us than if you're providing a full grant, right? Or equity or a loan loss reserve type investment that is at a higher risk. And so, I think we would like to at least give some examples, but we want to leave ourselves and you all some room, right, to give us examples that we might not have thought of that could still be meaningful. So I hope to have more concrete answers for you in the next month or so, but happy to also discuss further your specific programs.
And one more comment on that is that we're looking at things on a case-by-case basis because we have, there's such a great variety among states as to the circumstances of the state at that moment and the size of the project and things like that. So and the nature of the project. So it's something where, as Elizabeth said, we'll try to get out more definitive type of language, but it's just something that we look at all of these on a case-by-case basis.
Great. And then finally, I think one last question here is, could you tell us a bit more about the double dipping rules for the program?
This is a tough one without the lawyers on the line. Essentially my understanding is that this comes in the Appropriations Acts for the relevant programs, which, there's an Appropriations Act every couple of years, and it's really goes back to the old Anti-Deficiency Act, which is saying essentially we can't commit future federal funds. And the concern is that if a loan is essentially dependent on repayment from another federal source, we might be violating that. And so there's different language in each of the appropriations bills for each of the programs that's slightly different. Title 17 happens to have one of the most restrictive set of language of the various programs, unfortunately. And so, I think we've had to deal with many different types of support and run them through the general counsel's office in detail to sort of try to be as flexible and creative as we can. But it's really important to flag it for us early. What federal support sources is your agency organization receiving, even if you aren't thinking that they are, potentially for this program. And then that way we can start to document and explain, look, we're getting this federal support, but it's not benefiting the project that is applying to LPO, right? And I think that's the key for all of these kinds of case by case things, is that the more time we have to lay it out and get it in legal's queue, the more hopefully we can accommodate what you're trying to accomplish.
Thanks. So we are at time, so I want to quickly we'll end the poll and share the results here of the polling for round 2, and then we'll wrap up. So it looks like most of your organizations are currently state authorized to provide financing for energy projects. Looks like the majority of them do also receive funding from the state to support clean energy projects. Looks like most of you have not previously discussed providing SEFI support for projects that could apply for LPO loan guarantees. And the big barriers here are, looks like, very much prioritizing the bill and IRA grants right now is a big thing, and also just project sizes being too small are the two biggest. Looks like the most beneficial parts or most beneficial technical assistance would be clear and tangible examples of eligible programs, as well as technical support to supplement staff capacity. And then also some high priorities here: manufacturing sector decarbonization, and then loans for multifamily building decarbonization. And then finally, top 2 for LPO programs that are of greatest interest: Title 17 and SEFI, and then also the 1706 program. And then finally, most of you did respond, yes, you'd be interested in follow-up discussions with LPO outreach. So with that, I want to just say, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got a lot out of this webinar. We did put a lot of information in front of you, but I hope it ended up being very useful in determining what you can do with LPO and some of the opportunities you can take advantage of as a state energy office or a state energy financing institution. I also want to extend a big thank you to all of our speakers, to Henry, to Elizabeth and Gretchen, to Bert and John, for all your great insights today. It was a wonderful presentation, and we couldn't have done it without you. So with that in mind, I just wanted to say thanks again, and have a great rest of your afternoon. And we look forward to speaking with you in the near future on LPO's opportunities. Have a great day. Take care.